believe, well, I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Good evening, I'm Tamsin Roberts in the GB Newsroom. Archie Battersby family say they intend to file an application to the High Court to transfer him to a hospice after they lost a final attempt to delay the withdrawal of his life support. Last month, the High Court ruled that the 12-year-old, who's been in a coma since April, must remain at the Royal London Hospital while his treatment is stopped. But his parents say they want to choose where their son takes his last moments. They say Bart's NHS Health Trust will end Archie's treatment by 11 a.m. unless an application regarding the hospice move is submitted to the court by 9 a.m. Sajid Javid has become the latest heavyweight to throw his support behind Liz Truss to become the Conservative Party leader, who has reiterated her promises to cut tax and grow the economy at the Cardiff Hustings event tonight. The Foreign Secretary said she would try to change the mandate of the Bank of England, arguing that increasing taxes could never lead to growth. Truss also pledged to unite the union, criticising the Scottish Government for its plans on a second independence vote. And she said Wales would receive more financial support if she becomes Prime Minister.
I think as somebody who is from not a Conservative background, who, I've got friends in other parties, my family, lots of them don't support the Conservatives. But I know how to convince people and how to bring people on board. So I think being a convert is actually an asset. Because what do we have to do at the election? We have to convert people. We can't just talk to ourselves. We actually have to go there and win in the country.
Rishi Sunak remains 34% behind his competitor Liz Truss in a poll of Tory members. In the Hustings event tonight, he promised to give his heart and soul to the party. The former Chancellor set out a number of key policies, including what he described as bold and radical reforms to make the NHS more cost-effective. He also pledged to cut income tax once inflation is under control and reduce the number of failed asylum seekers in the UK.
I will apply that same urgency, that same energy, that same grip and radicalism to tackling all of our problems, reforming public services, growing the economy, tackling migration, putting in practice those Conservative values of hard work, of aspiration, of hope that we all hold dear to build a better Britain. But more than that, I promise you all this. I will give you my everything, my heart and my soul, everything I've got.
TV, online and DAB Plus radio, this is GB News. Now, it's back to headliners.
Hello, and thanks for joining us for Headliners. I'm Josh Howie, and I'm joined by two comedians with dedicated and passionate followers on social media, and I'm very much looking forward to receiving their feedback about my hosting debut on my way home. It is Leo Kearse and Nick Dixon.
And don't hold back on that helpful criticism. No.
I just want to be better, that's all. This is a bit weird. This is a bit like the adults are away. Yeah. Somehow I'm the one who's got a tie.
You look good, actually. You look sort of like a sort of disheveled professor, like an alcoholic professor in an independent American movie.
That's exactly what I was going for. Thank you, sir. And you look like a sort of a guy who wants to look like a Cuban drug lord.
Thank you. That's actually
but from the north.
Yeah.
Yeah, OK, well, there we go. Good. All right, well, let's take a look at tomorrow's front pages, and we are going to start with the Daily Mail. They are leading with Ditch the Woke Witch trial, says Law Chief, and Vardy and the circus of hubris, humbug and hurt feelings. Onto the Telegraph, and they're leading with water plant that could prevent hosepipe ban secretly mothballed, and using cameras to catch polluting cars may actually be illegal. Now to The Guardian, they're leading with revealed far-right web radicalising UK children, and Taiwan braces for China blockade after US visit. Financial Times with SoftBank approaches end of an era with steps to reduce Alibaba stake, and scientists blur border between life and death by reviving organs in dead pigs. We're going to get to that later. Mirror with end betrayal of our kids. Swim heroes fury at lack of investment in sport facilities, and lionesses say give all girls the chance to play football. And the Times with hosepipe ban for millions as country faces drought. And the Daily Express leading with fears soaring gas bills will push inflation. Bombshell as experts warn cost of living crisis will get even worse next year. And the Daily Star leading with grass up your granny, spy on neighbours over hosepipe ban. And those are your front pages. Kicking off my presenting debut is, well, an interesting story, maybe possibly the best ever headline that we might get on GB News. Maybe it's going to put us out of business. What do you say?
It's basically written for GB News. So Suella Braverman has declared war on woke witch trials. She's the Attorney General, so she's scrapped these diversity training schemes, which she says are downright dangerous with the content, and they're also sucking up a huge amount of time. So her officials in her department took part in almost 2,000 hours of diversity training, which is insane. I mean, it's a grift. It's a sort of self-sustaining grift for activist trainers who say, oh, you know, Britain's systemically racist and misogynist and homophobic, so we've got to have all this training to ameliorate it. But, you know, obviously there's no way of sort of really proving either way. So they're getting lots of money. Stonewall, you know, shake companies down for money so they can get their part of the scheme. And it's a chore for staff. I mean, we've all had real jobs, and you've got to give up an afternoon when you could be doing your work. I mean, there is free sandwiches, but it's still, you know, you're getting nagged. And also, you know, you've got to walk on eggshells all the time with all this stuff, you know, getting taught about microaggressions. Like a friend of mine had training today, was telling me about it. And they were being taught that if you excluded somebody from a project, you know, for perfectly legitimate reasons, like their skills weren't needed, you had to explain to them that it wasn't because they're different. It's not because they're a different ethnicity or anything like that.
Is that why you sort of took me aside and said that was why you didn't want me hanging out with you and Nick?
You're right here. You're running the show. It's the opposite of that.
He said controlling the media.
But yeah, all this diversity, all this equality, diversity and inclusion stuff is it's a huge drag on the economy, and it doesn't do anything useful. So it's good to see government ministers recognising this and doing something about it.
Well, look, I hesitate to ask Nick, but do you think there is any benefit at all to these schemes?
Absolutely not, Josh. Although, I mean, Leo said we've all done proper jobs. I haven't really, but I imagine... No, I've done the odd one. But I love what Braverman said here. She said, like the witch finders of the Middle Ages, they don the outfit of the Inquisitor and never tire of rooting out unbelievers. She's absolutely right. This is why I backed her to win. She lost, but this is why she's good. Because these courses... These sort of courses that tell you, oh, you're inherently evil for being white, they are racist.
Yeah.
The worst that most people say about them is that they're divisive. If you attack any other race, it's racist. If you attack white people, we go, it's divisive. But I just call it racist, what it is. Yeah. And what's happening now, quite humorously, is that people are now suing for these courses, not just white people, but there was a Latino woman the other day at Sky, and they said to her, oh, you must be oppressed because you're Latino. Some white woman said that to her. So she said, no, and I find that offensive. Sued them, got 14 grand.
Oh, my God.
So that you...
Please, GB News, get in some Jewish diversity person. Let's make some money.
Exactly. Okay. So they're offensive to everyone, and that's what I was going to say. And also, it reminds me of that Tavistock thing, you know, the woke civil service stopping policies going through. So it's a good move to end this stuff. OK, great. Well, on to Thursday's Telegraph. And Nancy Pelosi's Taiwan visit. China said it would act, and so it has. But is it all a game, Nick? Yeah, good question. So the Telegraph's gone with China's war games amount to sea and air blockade of Taiwan. So you know, China's making a display that, oh, we can't do this, or we'll do something military. They've done unprecedented aggressive military drills and so on. And people say, is it saber rattling? Some people say it's a distraction from the Evergrande company, a property giant in China that's 300 billion in debt and can't pay it. So it's like 10 times the Lehman Brothers collapse. It's a huge scandal. Some people say they're distracted from that. I think they're possibly distracted from that, but still would do something military. You know, you can't rule out that it's both. But the big question is, as well, and by the way, the US is bound legally to defend Taiwan if there was a conflict. So there is that.
It's almost like a NATO obligation.
But it's like a looser obligation, isn't it? Because they don't have official ties, but it's kind of agreed
But
upon.
it is in law. In American law, they have to.
Yeah, exactly. And the question is, though, why is Pelosi gone? And everyone's got... Why is she even gone there? And people have, like, various generous and less generous guesses. One is that she's just trying to do something political before the midterms, distance herself from Biden, and it's a kind of some sort of political gesture to revive her career. Others people say it's just that she's always had this passion for human rights in China. She was like nearly arrested years ago in Tiananmen Square and things like. She's always cared about this. So it could just genuinely be that, even though domestically she's horrific. But the thing is, the thing I would add is that there's a question of why she's gone. But once she has gone. No, once she said she'll go, she has to then go. She can't back down. Some people are like, why is she going at all? And the Biden administration don't actually want her to go, is what I've heard. But once she said, I'm going, you can't back down to China's threats.
Talking of backing down, so a Chinese final warning is actually a Russian proverb that means a warning that carries no weight, because, throughout the decades, America has been, doing military action, policing the strait between Taiwan and China. And so China's consistently put out final warnings, 900 formal warnings to America, saying, if you do this again, we're going to invade, we're going to do this. And you can see Xi Jinping, he wimped out again. He had all his tanks, rolling around in China, but didn't do anything.
You know what they remind me of? They remind me of, like, when you don't get into a nightclub, or you see the footage of people not getting into nightclubs and they're trying to start a fight with bouncers and taking their tops off and be like, come on, mate, take me on in there. Hold me back, just hold me back.
Yeah. Xi Jinping has got a lot of people holding him back right now. But if they all let go, he wouldn't do anything.
Cool. Well, let's go to the Times. And with the Tory leadership race, do we now have a case of the betrayer becoming the betrayed, Leo?
That's right, yeah. So Sajid Javid, who is a friend and, formerly was allied with Rishi Sunak, has thrown his support behind Liz Truss to become the next Conservative leader, warning that Rishi Sunak's economic plans would lead to Britain sleepwalking into a high-tax, low-growth economy. So, I mean, this could be the death knell for Rishi Sunak's dreams of becoming Prime Minister right now. I think Truss is she 34 points clear in the polls?
According to one poll, but then Sunak's posse are all saying, no, actually, it's a lot closer. Please believe us.
Yeah, but that's what a politician would say. I think it's a nonsense. But yeah, I mean, Sajid Javid, there have been sort of ideological differences around tax and public spending between Rishi Sunak and Sajid Javid, and I mean, certainly since Sajid started paying tax, he obviously wants lower tax rates because it's fine to have high tax if your money's actually in the Cayman Islands, but if it's going to be here, you want the tax rates to be a bit lower.
Well, Nick, supposedly they're a former mentor. They're both Star Wars fans. Is there anything to this rumour that actually their tension started when Javid took over as the health secretary, or is it just that he said that Mandalorian season 2 was rubbish?
Bit of both, I think. Yeah, they fell out over tax, like so many of us have, Josh. They fell out over their different approaches to tax.
We're always arguing, but then we make up. We argue, we call each other 2 in the morning. More tax, less tax.
Reduce national insurance. I know, it's a nightmare. But obviously that's one of the big splits, or that you're allowed to talk about in the Tory party. It's a safe thing to talk about tax, and obviously Rishi's approach has been, we need to be fiscally responsible and we can't lower taxes, and that's got him in trouble in the leadership race. Hasn't worked well because now Truss, as it says here, has 4 former leadership contenders backing her, which is obviously Javid, Tugendhat, Morden, Braverman. I guess the other one is Ben Wallace, although he barely ran.
Kemi Badenoch.
Is she backed her now?
No, I think she's clever. She's holding back a little bit.
She said she wasn't declaring either way last I heard.
Well, that's...
Yeah, anyway. And this is sort of like, I feel like Sajid is sort of rushing in right before it's finally decided to try and get a spot in the cabinet. Yeah,
whereas Rishi tonight, I watched a little bit of the live hustings in Cardiff. He had Michael Howard backing him. Now, he is a respected figure, but he basically came up and said, look, Rishi is like Thatcher. They're both fiscally responsible. He's just like Thatcher, and no one's really buying it. It's not going to work. Truss is winning.
Yeah.
I think he looks... I've seen him in a dress. He looks similar. Anyway, on to Thursday's Daily Mail. And alas, it seems like we're not going to see Jacob Rees-Mogg lip-syncing to Beyoncé, Nick.
Well, that's a shame. But yes, the headline is UK Parliament shuts down its TikTok account after concern from MPs about the social media firm's link to China. I don't know why they didn't know about this. I don't know who okayed this. I mean, it's funny. A spokesman has said, based on member feedback, we're closing the pilot account earlier than we had planned. Yeah, a lot earlier than you planned, like
A week.
now.
Yeah.
They said that it's they opened it as a way of engaging young people with politics. Yes, young spies, because we don't know if TikTok's definitely a spy thing, but it's rumoured.
No, I know.
You do know, yeah. I mean,
Definitely.
Josh knows, but he's got a lot of context. But people are finally realising that we're in a sort of war with China. It's a sort of soft war, isn't it? Propaganda war. They're in our universities. Obviously, in America, they sort of are in Hollywood. You've got to censor movies for them. And there's the Twitter bot says Huawei was spying and all this. And we're actually waking up to this a little bit, like, oh, maybe we shouldn't, engage with TikTok and things like this. Because China, whether China thinks it's at war with us, whether we have recognised it or not.
So, Leo, you see this as our government finally taking proper steps to deal with this, to step up to China?
I can't imagine they'd put anything on TikTok that would betray national security.
Hey, everybody, look at... I'm just reading these documents.
Yeah, exactly, with documents and battle plans and all the rest of it. But what's interesting is, I think China, as well as espionage, China uses things like TikTok to weaken the West and strengthen China. So if you go on TikTok in the West, it's all just the decadent, last days of the Weimar Republic. It's just promoting basically sex work and nonsense.
You're talking about my account,
and
right?
then
certain regimes are said to put porn into certain countries.
Yeah. Like so, they make sure the algorithm promotes worse content, degrading, socially degrading content in the West, and then in China, if you open TikTok, it's all teaching you algebra and stuff like that, and good family values.
That's only positive social media. Great. Well, Thursday's independent, and Leo, things were looking pretty bleak, but now they're looking even bleaker.
Yeah, so a good few % bleaker. So households are facing a double-fronted assault on living standards as the Bank of England looks set to announce the biggest interest rate hike in almost 3 decades. And economists warn inflation could hit 15% next year. So we're already in double digits. But, I mean, so they're raising the base rate to 1.75%. That's lagging inflation so much. Basically, if you've got money in the bank, inflation is stealing your money. And when I say inflation, I mean the government and their quantitative easing and policies that cause this inflation. Like we need to be. A lot of this is based on is due to energy prices. So we should be drilling for oil in the North Sea. Every hand should be at the pump to make ourselves energy sufficient. We can worry about climate change in 20 years' time. Like right now, we need to get energy, and we need to get it out from fracking, from the North Sea, from the Falklands, and from Africa. Places that aren't tainted with fascism.
Well, yeah. Nick, there is some good news. Some prices are coming down, but is it going to be enough, do you think?
Are they? No, I agree with Leo. Get fracking now. I've seen his T-shirt. But
that's because you're both sponsored by fracking companies.
I'm actually sponsored by milk.
Oh, very good. He's cracked open the milk.
That's some sort of dog whistle. I don't fully understand yet. Look, this is not my area of expertise, but I did know that it says a new record first-time buyer asking price of £224,943 means that a 10% deposit for a first-time buyer type home is now 57% higher than it was 10 years ago. Seems a lot. While average salaries have only increased 31%, and Leo's even less. So you can see why we're in trouble.
Well, it's not just that. I think for first-time buyers now, they're going to have to pay like over £1,000 a month to repay their mortgage. That hasn't happened before, and also it's 40% of people's gross salary, and that hasn't happened since like 1992 or something. So again, this is just putting people's opportunities and dreams to buy and own their own place.
Yeah, as well as drilling to get energy, so and building modular nuclear reactors from Rolls-Royce, as well as doing all that, we need to build some houses.
So take all the stuff out of the ground, build some stuff with it, and then we're all.
The government is crazy. Instead of building houses, we're importing people. Like, there's 1 million people. Over 1 million people came here last year, and they didn't bring semi-detached bungalows with them. They need houses to live in when they get here. And it's like, fine if we're going to have like high immigration, but we need the houses for people to live in.
Congratulations for bringing immigration into this story about immigration.
It is hard to fit a house on a dinghy. But by the way, Josh, the 40% of gross salary...
barges.
40% of gross salary was last seen in 2012, just to be...
2012, thank you so much. We don't want to get those stop tweeting right now.
Yeah.
All right, then, the last story before the break. Thursday's Daily Mail has a story that it's not just nuclear bombs that we should be concerned about in the Ukraine war, right, Nick?
It's pretty bad, this one. The United Nations... Daily Mail, United Nations nuclear chief has warned that Europe's largest nuclear power plant in Ukraine is, quote, completely out of control, raising fears of another Chernobyl disaster. So it's not great. This is the International Atomic Energy Agency. Issued an urgent plea to Russia and Ukraine to quickly allow experts to visit the sprawling Zaporizhzhia complex.
Zaporizhzhia?
Zaporizhzhia, something like that.
Big nuclear, scary place.
Yes, and the Director General of this company has said, or this organisation has said, what is at stake is extremely serious and extremely grave and dangerous. So serious, grave, dangerous, not great. And he says it's a paradoxical situation in which the plant is controlled by Russia, but its Ukrainian staff continues to run its nuclear operations. So it's kind of like Leo owns it, but Dr. Scholler is running it. You know what I mean? Just to give you and I was going to say...
That is unacceptable.
Yeah, I was going to say someone else said, but I was told not to. But the...
censorship on GBNews.
You're the closest person to her.
Well, the IAEA, yeah. So the other problem is that there's problems with spare parts. The whole thing's a nightmare. And obviously, as he points out here, you can't just... The Russians are going to stand in front of this thing. You can't shoot back at them because you could cause a nuclear explosion. So they're obviously using that. So they've got to let these people get in and resolve it. That's the hope.
It's only really a problem if the wind is blowing this way. If the wind's blowing towards Russia, I say we bomb it now.
All right, so let's just sum up this particular, before we go to break, this section. Drill for oil, stop 1 million people coming over, and don't worry about the weather, nuclear stuff
Oh,
going on
no,
over there.
the people can still come here. They just have to bring houses.
OK, and as long as they've had their radiation treatment. Wonderful. Well, that's all for part one. Coming up, we've got de-radicalisation, some radicalisation, and Leo takes the knee story. See you in a minute.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio,
On digital, absolutely everywhere.
we don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Welcome back to Headliners, and I'm joined by the two best panellists on GB News. It's Leo Kearse and me, Josh Howie. Jokey is Nick Dixon.
Yeah, the last 100 shows called, they want their joke back.
You know, if it works, you just keep it. That's
that
what
really
I
hurt you, Nick.
Yeah.
I saw you crumble.
Sorry,
It's fine. I knew what they were going to say. It's always the same.
Leo, right, well, let's kick off with you as
Okay.
the number one. And Thursday's Telegraph has the story that Rishi is looking to prevent from not doing enough preventing.
That's right, yeah. That's a complicated way of putting it. But basically, Rishi Sunak is going to widen the definition of extremism to include people who vilify the UK, which is every comedian, the Labour Party, and a lot of people right now.
Shola, most Remainers.
yeah.
The Guardian.
So he's going to widen the definition to include those with an extreme hatred of Britain, who could then go on to be placed on Prevent, which is their anti-radicalisation, anti-terror scheme. So I mean, it might be a bit of a sop to Tory grassroots to be saying this at this time when it's a kind of they're saying, oh, don't worry, we're worried about terror and stuff as well. But it sounds kind of unworkable. I mean, you can't put everybody who criticises Britain on a watch list. And there's already, I think it's 25,000 jihadis on watch lists who really hate Britain, even though they live here. So I think this is kind of unworkable, and the expansion of Prevent to cover more and more areas is just going to water down their abilities.
Well, people have said there's a risk that it might include law-abiding citizens being critical of the UK. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, it could do that. Part of me thinks this is just Rishi on another, hey, I'm anti-woke now, Conservative members, because that's what he's been doing. He's been making various gestures to get the members back on board. So it's interesting he's suddenly talking about this. But it is important because Prevent got the focus on. They kept talking about far-right extremists, very minor, very small number compared to Islamists. It says here only 22% of referrals to Prevent and Channel de-radicalisation programmes are Islamist, even though Islamists account for 80% of live counter-terror investigations and 60% of all extremists in jails. So it's about rectifying that. Yeah, I suppose the danger is that the remit goes too far, but it is good to crack down on this stuff if they actually manage to do it. I'm a bit suspicious because there's a lot of promises going around at the moment.
And why do you think there is such a large discrepancy between that 22% and that 80%? Do you think there's anything? Do you think it's because a lot of these recommendations or referrals come from teachers or other organisations, youth organisations, or not? Do you think that they might be afraid of being portrayed as racist?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert, so I better be careful. But I think one thing is, some people.
I'm just trying to get you fired, Nick.
I know some people may be reluctant to report it. Is one thing, to even. And then there's another thing is like you say. Then there's the fear, which we've seen with Telford. So that could be a valid thing. But last I heard, there's about 20,000 Islamic terrorists on the watch list who were watching. So
I just said it.
The numbers. Oh, sorry.
That's where you heard it.
Oh, I zoned out. I was thinking about myself again. But yeah, there you go.
There you go. You guys messaging each other then. OK, The Guardian now has an investigation into UK children being ensnared by the far-right ecosystem. Now, is that what got you, Nick?
Yes, sadly, Josh.
Is that just like GB News recruiting?
Wouldn't say that on GB News. We're a very neutral platform. We have to be legal. So this is UK children being ensnared by far-right ecosystem. Now, when I saw that title, I thought, this is The Guardian, before I even saw it. And, of course, it was. So that puts you on edge immediately. I mean, look, this may be a serious problem, but the problem is The Guardian and people like that have overused far-right so much. When you hear it, you think they might just mean Jeff Norcott. Do you know what I mean? Like, we don't know if they actually mean it. But they say here, an insidious far-right ecosystem is targeting children in an attempt to radicalise them online. So, firstly, great that The Guardian suddenly care about grooming. I don't know when they started that. Weren't bothered about Telford. Still don't seem to be that bothered.
Yeah.
And they're talking about terrorism, which they didn't seem to care about that much when it was Manchester. Maybe they did. I don't know. I don't want to quote them on that. But we've talked about Prevent as well, which they mentioned.
You should start reading The Guardian more.
Just to check what's in it.
Yeah. Just so you know.
You can pretty much guess.
Believe it or not, they have actually mentioned those things. But
well, I always have...
No, they haven't. And they've also... The Guardian has published...
Why did I set him off? Why did I set him off?
You told me they hadn't, that's why
The Guardian has published articles misrepresenting data to minimise
I've seen,
grooming gangs.
I meant more like...
It's really
I meant
sinister.
the more Manchester bombings and things like that.
It's really sinister and creepy.
Follow Leo on Twitter for this.
I think what's radicalising people, if people are being radicalised at all, I think a lot of this is nonsense, considering, people consider, genuinely, The Guardian considers GB News to be far-right. It's an absolute nonsense. Not wanting drag queens to be teaching your 5-year-old is considered a far-right position. It's absolute nonsense. So, but what's radicalising them is mainstream media, like The Guardian, constantly hammering this message. If you're male, if you're white, if you're heterosexual, you're bad. Where are these? There's open discrimination. It's reinforced through, equality, diversity, and inclusion. Where are people? These people are getting turned away from mainstream culture, so obviously they're going to end up...
well, look, 19 out of 20 children arrested for terrorism last year, for terrorism offences, were linked to extreme right-wing ideology. So that obviously does seem to be...
Mumsnet.
Look, there does seem to be a problem.
Where's that stat come from? The Guardian?
From that very... You should keep on reading The Guardian, mate.
It's not, see, that's what I mean, though. Look, I'm not saying this doesn't happen or it's not a serious thing. Of course, if it is terrorism, then of course it's very serious. But I'm just saying I don't totally believe The Guardian because they've overused it so much. Yeah. The whole piece could be about dolphins, for all I know. But and they say that teachers have referred a lot of them. And so you go, OK, but we know teachers are incredibly left-wing, so...
Oh, yeah. It might just be a pink-haired communist teacher is going to be
some teenagers are watching an Alex Jones gay frogs meme, and that counts as far right. You know?
I don't know. It seems more like how it leads from one thing to the other. Like, it starts innocently, seemingly, like you listen to, like, a Nick Dixon podcast. The algorithm...
That's pretty far down the route.
That's the end of the route, is it?
You can be sued for that. And will be.
Well, before I get sued, let's go to Thursday's Times. And, Leo, I guess for footballers, black lives don't matter anymore.
Yeah. By the way, I'm on Nick Dixon's podcast, so I can't...
But
I'm just jealous you never invited me on. That's what...
But, yeah, so Premier League players... this is going to delight Nick. Premier League players are going to stop taking the knee before every match. Apparently, they're getting...
Racists.
They're getting cartilage damage. It's exhausting them before they get up again. They started taking the knee a couple of years ago after... Because it totally makes sense. George Floyd was killed in Minneapolis by a policeman. So why wouldn't footballers in the UK take the knee? Even though if George Floyd came back, it's probably the last thing you want to see.
I didn't hear about that case.
I think they're going to stop doing it. I think the real reason is because they're off to play in Qatar, a lot of them, soon, where the World Cup is going to be held. And Qatar was built by, slaves and, migrant workers who were treated incredibly badly. And hundreds of them died in the construction of the stadiums. So it's modern-day slavery. So just the disgusting hypocrisy of them taking the knee on the death site of slaves would be ridiculous.
Absolutely, but I mean, they're talking about sort of coming up with some sort of gesture to show their solidarity with those workers in Qatar. Any idea, Nick, what sort of physical movement that might be to suggest?
Yeah,
they could falling over.
I don't know.
Crushed by unsafe building works.
Yeah, I don't know, but I was very against the taking a knee because it was so explicitly tied to Black Lives Matter, which is an organisation I don't believe in. And I
say how you feel, mate.
I eased off, well, because of the nature of the organisation, not because of... See, football had anti-racism campaigns for years. No one ever had a problem with it. Then suddenly it had this campaign, and people didn't like it because they know what BLM is. But then what happened was, because BLM was criticised, people like Sky started to sort of gaslight and say, this is just, on the commentary, they'd say, it's just an anti-racism gesture. Meanwhile, the BLM logo is plastered all over the screen, all over the ads. You know what I mean? And so it was completely disingenuous. And although it seems to have worked because allegedly, for BLM, they've ended up with a lot of mansions. But the point is, I didn't like it for that reason. When they did it in the Euros, I'm a nice guy. I said, OK, if they think it's an anti-racism gesture, fine. But
you are a very nice guy.
You. But for many people, it's not. It's not that, and so it becomes this, leftist gesture, which is why people don't like it.
Why it got booed.
And it's good that they're stopping it. And apparently the women don't do it either. So that's another thing.
And football's always
they don't care about.
Football's always been at the forefront of genuine racial integration. So in the 70s, Millwall had more black players on their books than The Guardian had black journalists. So The Guardian, absolutely true. The Guardian, vaunts itself as, we're so integrated, we're right there, we're so progressive. No, Millwall, the working class football club that people sneer at as being racist or whatever, is
and that's the most racist club.
On that image of you sitting up all night going through all the journalists from the 1970s and working out that statistic, on to Thursday's Telegraph. And to quote one of my favourite comedy sketches, cocaine is one hell of a drug. Leo?
Yes, so middle-class drug users are fueling soaring numbers of cocaine deaths. Cocaine deaths have risen sevenfold in a decade. And apparently it's mostly middle-class people, which means that the papers will care about it. Like this is in The Guardian, which ignored Telford and Rotherham and all the rest of it because that was working-class people. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if there's something in the cocaine. I know in America they've had a lot of cases of... There was a comedian who died after snorting cocaine cocaine that was laced with fentanyl. So fentanyl's which is also made in China, by the way. Another way China is destabilising the West and killing a lot of young people.
Ruining my Saturday night.
But cocaine does seem to be everywhere. I was offered cocaine drinks after a neonatal class. That is how...
That's very neonatal.
Yeah. But it's a horrible drug. I think in this country it's linked to drinking because it means, you know, you sober up and you can carry on drinking, but it's... and there's more people drinking because of lockdown. But, yeah, it's a horrible drug and it's sad to see people dying from it.
Well, it is. I was going to say probably, yeah, like you said, the comedy industry is probably responsible for about half of it. And I did notice here 76.8% of deaths involving cocaine are males. So we need to talk about cocaine death inequality. Not that I'm making light of the very serious topic, but...
Yeah. Okay. And that's all for part 2. See you in a sec, where the stories will get a bit sillier with serial killer football clubs, Frankenstein pigs, and one very, very happy woman. Find out why in a minute. Well, yeah, 2 minutes.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio,
On digital, absolutely everywhere.
we don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Welcome back to the final section, and miraculously, GB News is still standing with myself, Josh Howie, Leo Kearse, and Nick Dixon. Brilliant. He's got the big thumbs up. He's like a dad. The crankies over there.
Like a dad at school football.
OK, fair enough.
It's positive.
To Thursday's Sun, where Southend Football Club could do with a proofreader, Nick.
Yes, they've gone with, how did that get through? Fans in stitches over Southend's new stand name, the Gilbert and Rose West stand. So they've gone with the jolly serial killer Bants angle in the headline. Quite serious in a way, but yeah, basically there was this estate agents, Gilbert and Rose. They sponsored the stand. It was the West one, so they went with Gilbert and Rose West. And the problem is they've already included the name on their website and season ticket cards. So now they don't want to change it again because it's going to cost them a lot of money.
We've got a picture of it there.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, yeah. That's definitely the best stand. I don't know, the Mid-X Pro East stand, that's pretty controversial. Yeah. The Jonathan Rees, is that a serial killer as well?
We should have a Harold Shipman stand. Oh, yeah. That's what we need in that.
That's what we should have put up, but that would have been funny.
Yeah.
Didn't think of that.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
There we go. I mean, would this make you want to watch some football?
No, it's still boring, but it reminds me of when Susan... What's the Scottish singer?
Boyle.
Susan
Boyle.
Susan Cowles a comic.
No,
Susan
Boyle.
Yeah, Boyle. Susan Boyle.
I just said it. He just then he said it.
But I'm more. Look, I've got the tie. I'm more authoritative.
Can I just
Boyle? I knew it was Boyle.
When Susan Boyle had an album out, so she had her PR tweeted and used the hashtag Susan Album Party. Which on the hashtag without any gaps looked Sue's Anal Bum Party, which was fun.
I was very disappointed when I got that album.
Yeah, it wasn't a very good album.
Thursday's Guardian has a story on the kind of cancelling that I think you could get behind, Leo, because something is rubbish.
Yeah, basically, it's not just rubbish. Batman, they made a new Batman movie. But it's
Batwoman?
Batgirl. So it's Batgirl, and they made it as woke as possible.
Bat trans woman?
It looks like, every advert in the last 2 years. And so this film has been made. It's been made. They filmed it. It stars, big actors. It's got Leslie Grace, Michael Keaton, Brendan Fraser. And the film's in post-production, and they've decided to can it. And they're saying, they're saying, oh, no, like, blah, blah, blah. But they've already spent like $100 million on this thing, and apparently the real reason it's been canned is they had test screenings, and the film was so atrocious that Warner Brothers has decided to cut its losses. They think they won't even make the money back on advertising and promoting it and distributing it. They're just going to sink $100 million. But apparently it's a tax write-off as well, so it's more cost-effective to scrap it now than next year.
And think about this: they won't even release it, but they released The Last Jedi. So imagine how bad this is. Look at the stuff they actually released, and imagine how bad this must be. And it had Michael Keaton and Brendan Fraser, and I like both of those. But imagine, I suspect, and I haven't seen it because it's not released, I suspect it's another case of go woke, go broke, Leo.
Go woke, they went
and I don't need to see it. I don't need to see it to confirm my prejudices. I just know that's what it is.
Another $100 million down the drain, on top of Quibi, which was a woke sort of short form channel that sunk billions, and also CNN, $300 million. If you go woke, you go broke. So if you want to, if you want to make money,
if you go GBNews,
if you want to make money, invest in GBNews.
Yes,
there we go. I can certainly go along with that.
That's where all my money is.
Sticking with The Guardian, and Nick, does this story make you want to get married?
Yeah, so women may not live longer than men after all. Clever
Yippee!
Joke. That's a clever joke there. This is in The Guardian. And so there's a substantial chance married or university-educated men outlive women without spouse or high school diploma. So you've got to get that spouse. So this is a study from the BMJ Open Journal. They looked at 199 countries for almost 200 years, and they found that men have a high probability of outliving women, especially those who are married or have a degree. Now, I've got the degree, Leo's married, he hasn't got an education, but between the two of us, we could outlive a woman. And this, what happened?
I mean, that sounds quite sinister when Nick says it.
Everything sounds sinister when Nick says it.
I want to check the boot of his car for fibres.
What's really interesting, that's another lawsuit. What's really interesting is that the probability of men outliving women fell until the 70s, and then it gradually increased after that. And they're attributing that to things like smoking. But surely it's that men used to do hard labour down mines and stuff, and then from the 70s onwards, they could get jobs at BuzzFeed or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting one. I mean, you're married. Did you? I always assumed that I was going to just die first, and I was quite happy about it. Would you want to live longer, or you ever think about this stuff?
I quite like to live as long as I can.
So you're saying you want to live longer?
Die. My wife's quite a bit younger than me, so even if I live older, it could.
And statistically, sorry to be a downer, but tall people do die earlier.
Yeah, because there's more of us to go wrong, I think.
Things like that. What about you? How long do you want to go for?
Well, my family all live an incredibly long time, so I think I'll just keep going. And we've got a story later about immortality, so I'm gunning for that.
Yeah. Benefits of you being closer to the Earth, lower centre of gravity.
Yeah.
I mean, being Scottish, I'm already pushing my luck.
You've really got the numbers against you. Moving on to Thursday's Telegraph. And Leo, what do you like in your knickers and bras?
My wife.
Oh, who will live longer?
But yeah, so basically Marks & Spencer's is going to stop having knickers and bras on hangers to cut down on plastic waste. And they've even been sending the knickers and bras out to customers who've bought them online with the hangers on them, even though you wouldn't hang underpants. Do you hang your underpants in a little hanger in your wardrobe?
I don't even own underpants.
I bet Nick would. Nick strikes me as
if anyone would do it, it would be me, but that's too mental even
I bet you put them in the microwave for 30 seconds to warm them up on a chilly morning.
You fold your underpants?
I fold them in the Marie Kondo style, which takes up less space and is very
And they're already extra small anyway, so...
Yeah, exactly. And my house, it looks much like a serial killer's, but neat. Do you know what I mean?
Serial killers aren't they?
I know, and they're great people. I was well,
not
they've got
7.
some flaws.
7 they wasn't.
They're anti-heroes. This the fact that Marks Spencer stopped displaying knickers and bras. All I've written down is that's my weekend ruined. That's all I had on that. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, but they do get annoying. Look, you've got your first baby on the way. It's very exciting, and you are going to find out that these like little sort of hangers are so pointless, and they're so annoying. And I have just got hundreds around my house, and it's like you sort of feel like, oh, I should save them if my children ever had a wardrobe or something. Then maybe they'd be useful.
I just leave stuff like that in the shop, and I mean, in Sports Direct. Last time I got some trainers, like they give you them in a box. I just took them out of the box and
install them.
And I put the box, and they're like, you can't leave the box. And I'm like, what are you going to do? You're going to pin it to me? You're going to pin it? You pin this box to me? How are you going to stop me leaving a box in a shop? And they didn't. I walked out of there without
It's nice to see that in real life you're actually as dangerous as you portray yourself. Sorry, Nick, what were you going to say?
I was going to say Leo strikes me as the kind of person that would go buy things from Sports Direct and put them in a suit bag. That's like that's his dress-up clothes for a wedding. That's all.
Fair enough. OK, well, let's go on to Thursday's Telegraph here with a pretty massive story, actually, that scientists have uncovered the secret to eternal life for pigs. Nick.
Yeah, most important story ever. We've put it 16th.
We had to do the Liz Truss stuff.
Yeah, death cured, guys. Story 16. Proof that process of death can be reversed as pigs' organs brought back to life. Breakthrough as scientists use machine to bring key parts of the animal's body back to full health. For the pig, he probably considers all the parts key parts, but I didn't ask him. So this could revolutionise transplantation of organs. It's like, yeah, but it's also cured death, guys. That's the main thing. So how did they find this? Well, a dead pig was hooked up to a machine called Organ X 1 hour after an induced cardiac arrest. I mean, ethically dubious, but who cares? We're curing death. So they killed the pig.
You can eat it afterwards.
Well, they killed it and brought it back, or they tried to bring it back. So the dying organs were treated with a new technology, and that shows that the pig organs recovered to the point of being comparable to those of a living pig. So this is a huge, huge thing. The only bummer is that it doesn't rekindle the essence of life, so we're still looking for that, and we don't have that yet. And it's very far away from use in humans, which is a bit of a downer. But basically, they've cured death, and it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
And I've always thought they could cure death. I mean, I'm no expert. I just felt it in my gut. But there's people like Aubrey de Grey, serious scientists, who do say death is just damage to cells. It's a kind of damage. We shouldn't accept it. We've accepted it as a given, but actually we can cure it. And also, I'm just hoping we get there in time. And Leo's a bit older than me, so I'm hoping I get there and he just misses it.
I'm a bit older, but I look after myself, Nick.
But you're tall, so that brings it back again.
Another
I love working out who of you is going to die first. We could just spend the whole hour on that.
Another scientist, Craig Ventnor, I think it was Craig Ventnor, said that we could be the last generation, like the last generation to die could have already died, and we could now, with technology like this, we can continue.
And Aubrey de Grey said the first person who to live to 1,000 has already been born. Just to add to that, but carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, that's why we need this this nuclear reactor.
I read a book to go years ago, but basically where immortality came around and it was very sort of plausible, but it just destroyed humanity until they had to basically ban it because we're not really regardless of whether we physically can survive that long. The idea was that after sort of 200-300 years, the scope of human existence is sort of too much for our minds.
Really? Not for mine. There is a resources question as well. You know, Klaus Schwab would keep all the... They'd all be living forever, the WEF, and then the plebs like us would not be allowed to live forever. That's probably what would happen initially.
Well, in the meantime, I mean, look, the technology hasn't got that far, but there's quite good news that it means that our bacon's going to be fresher. It's not good news for me. I don't eat bacon, but let's see what applications...
Do you not eat bacon?
I don't eat bacon. I eat turkey bacon.
Is that a religious thing?
Yeah, I'm Jewish. I don't know if you've heard.
Yeah, but surely...
Have you seen the show?
Did I mention that? I'm bald, I've got 5 kids, and I'm Jewish.
Surely it's just if you're ultra-Orthodox or something, you can't eat, because...
Well, I'm believe it or not, I go to synagogue.
Josh doesn't want some GBNews viewers seeing him in the street scoffing a bacon sandwich. You lied!
I'm not Ed Miliband style photo sent in. Well, that would be interesting. So dovetailing beautifully with the last story from The Mirror, and maybe smokers can keep on smoking, drinkers can keep on drinking, and you might as well finish that pack of Jaffa cakes, Leo.
Yeah, that's right. So synthetic organ cells have been grown in a lab for the first time after great game-changing research. So they've created synthetic mouse embryos without the use of a sperm or an egg, and then grown them in an artificial womb for 8 days. So this, if you can't get your organs from this, pig, keeping cadavers alive long enough to get the organs out of them, which will be really useful for the Chinese organ harvesting market, then you can create replacement organs. So, but basically, it's creating synthetic humans. They're saying it's not the same as a person because it's not grown from a sperm or an egg, but it is it's an embryo. It's a synthetic person with the organs growing inside it. That sounds like you're just making a person and then stealing the organs out of it. For me, it sounds. I've seen that in science fiction movies.
But it sounds like it's more like just the organs that are growing.
They do say embryo.
It's hard.
No, but it's inside. So what they're using is the embryo is like hosts these stem cells from specific organs, and that's what grows the organs itself inside the embryo, if that makes sense. So they're not growing like a full human or creature or whatever. They're just growing the parts of it that they have the stem cells.
So they're using it as a sort of 3D bioprinter.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing.
I see.
Yeah, very.
Well, it's hard to top the previous story that we've cured death via pigs, but I like this sentence. It raised the prospect that synthetic animals, even humans, could be grown from stem cells in a petri dish. I thought that's probably how most woke comedians were growing. Am I right? Any excuse to
just slam it
on that in.
You've got a lot of anger still going on from that thing a couple of years ago.
Them.
No, I hate you, me too, mate. It's not good. Keeping with the mirror, and it's comforting that there's someone else out there who feels really about someone else the same way that I feel about you, Nick.
Thanks, Josh. Yes, this is a woman says there's no rest as partner gets 100 erections each and every day. Bit of a humble brag, this whole story, but this is healthcare worker Vicky, 31, claims Lucas finds her so attractive he gets up to 100 erections a day in every setting imaginable. And I don't know if we have a picture of her or if that would even be safe, but
she's too...
she says...
Too attractive.
Yeah, the viewers will go crazy. She says that anything can set him off and he can be aroused in any setting. It sounds like an instruction manual or an advert. Can be aroused in any setting. It's like... Basically, he gets erections everywhere. They can be sat watching a film, walking down the street, or going to friends for a coffee, and he's got an erection. Sometimes it's embarrassing, but he just laughs about it. He does, yeah. But, so the whole story is basically that. And one of my favourite bits, man, I can just end on this, is that they met in Morrison.
Oh, my God. Do you know what, Nick? I wrote down here... Supermarket Nick.
Yeah.
I knew that would be the thing that upset you the most.
No,
the mask thing, right?
No, not the mask thing. No, I was going to say that they were queuing up when they met, and she says he walked around the corner with a massive piece of fillet steak in his basket. I just thought...
I thought it's because, Nick, you're like your pet... Hey, we live next to each other, near each other. We share a Sainsbury's.
Yes.
And your sort of fascination with humanity and who's still wearing masks or not within Sainsbury's.
And I've often walked up to you with a massive piece of fillet steak in my basket, and you not wearing a mask. Do you wear the mask, Josh?
I don't wear the mask.
Oh, good.
What about you, Leo? How does this fit your particular rate of
This is
up and down?
What's funny if we're talking about masks is, I mean, we stopped COVID. We stopped COVID coming through and decimating humanity, and this shows we should have just let it do its thing. Then we might have been spared this story. This is a total non-story. Somebody saying somebody gets erections.
But a lot.
Like, it's a man.
Leo, it's a lot of erections.
It's not that many erections. A lot of people
Leo's going down. Challenge accepted.
Fair enough. What is this? The real story is going on here.
I'll joust this guy.
Oh God, that's very.
That's quite repeated in the morning.
If this guy is watching, then hopefully that has cured him.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the one incident where he's going to be totally safe. Good. Well, let's go to Thursday's Guardian with the refreshing story of students fighting against a statue where slavery isn't involved, Leo.
Yeah, so this is, well, they're still trying to get a statue pulled down. University students at Imperial College London are battling to prevent the installation of a new sculpture by Anthony Gormley, of course, the Angel of the North and various other amazing sculptures, over concerns that the work is phallic. That means looks like a penis.
Oh, there we go. There's the photo right there.
Oh, there we go.
Jeez, come on, mate.
That's a bunch of blocks.
No, that's a big one.
No.
It looks like Lego porn.
Anyway,
that's him. He's in the supermarket there with a fillet.
Let's just hear what Gorman formally says. So he says, the artist himself says, the sculpture represents a figure balancing on the balls of his feet while squatting on its haunches.
Yeah,
but the Imperial College Union...
Oh, yeah, there we go. Yes, of course. I like how they fuzzed out the offending part there.
They're absolute maniacs. He's one of our greatest living artists, and they're saying, "Oh no, it looks like a penis. Oh, we've got to remove it."
But it's definitely in proportion, though, isn't
3
it?
meters long. It doesn't sound like a penis. That's twice the length of mine. So yeah, they're looking to get it torn down, pulled off. They want to pull it off the campus.
Yeah, he said he wanted to explore the correlation between people and their environment. I'm not sure what a Lego penis has to do with that, but anyway.
Right. I'm great. It's art.
Are we allowed to say any of those things we just said?
Well, let's find out. Is the show still going out? Well, let's go on to what your style of humour says about you. Is this right, Leo? Do you think that people going into your set are going to see you doing comedy?
This has some ramifications for comedians. So what makes you laugh, what type of comedy you like or you perform yourself just in everyday life could indicate whether you're a narcissist or a psychopath, according to a new study. So there's this dark triad of personality traits, psychopathy, narcissism and Machiavellianism.
And we've got all three tonight. Bagsy narcissist. Leo must be psychopath. You're Machiavellian. Sorry, Josh.
I don't mind.
So that's how we wrote.
That's how you got nothing in the host seat. Yeah. Nice.
But yeah, what's interesting is they say there's 8 comic styles and there's sort of lighter styles, and they're shared on they've got a basis of positive emotions and benevolence, and it's all rubbish comedy like nonsense. When you go and watch some posh Oxbridge guy dressed up as a dolphin doing all this wacky jam and badger stuff, and also wit, so puns and things like that. Absolutely rubbish. And then the bad things, the bad comic styles related to mockery and ridicule that are linked to psychopathy and narcissism are all the good types of comedy that we do. So irony, stating things in opposition to their meaning when you understand that. Apparently that creates a mutual sense of superiority. Also satire and sarcasm and cynicism. So basically, bad comedians are nice people and good comedians are terrible people.
As we knew. So I've made women take this on dates, this dark triad test, and it's a great fun thing to do / screening process. And one girl got
for you.
One girl got 92% narcissism, and she was gutted it wasn't higher. And I was like, red flag. But also, I've done the dark triad test, and you'll be pleased to know I got basically 0 psychopathy, 0 Machiavellianism. I was more narcissistic than 40% of the people that had done the test, which still put me in the lower half, admittedly, of people who've done a test about themselves and whether they're narcissistic. But I'm not even that narcissistic. I'm lower than average.
I'm not even that narcissistic. But I love how there's this dark triad of narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy, and you make women take that test, thereby creating an extra layer of evil above the dark triad.
Make is a strong word. Suggest, which is a bit Machiavellian, but it's a fun thing to do and also gives you great data.
They like it, do they? Did you get a good response from it?
People love taking little tests about themselves, don't they? People love it.
Said the Chinese communist prison camp guard.
I read an interesting article today about Frankie Boyle, actually, talking about what the people who are big fans of Frankie Boyle, what it says about them, how they think that they're sort of... His argument for what the recent jokes, the sort of the rape murder jokes, as you do, is the idea he's being ironic or whatever. I mean, do you think that there is anything to that? Do you think that there's a sense of superiority, i.e. we get it, we're OK to laugh at it, but you're all idiots if you laughed at someone else telling that joke?
It is ironic that he can attack people like Andrew Lawrence when they do jokes, but he's allowed to do any jokes he wants. So that's definitely ironic. Is that what he means?
Yeah. Well, this is what this article was basically saying, So it is interesting. Anyway, Frankie, if you're watching...
You've got to be part of the rape joke elite, basically.
Oh, yeah. If I go see Nick's Edinburgh show to see all of that.
I'm not in it.
Well, that was good. Thanks, guys. I appreciate your support.
This show is definitely going to be shown in a court at some point over the next...
You did well, Josh. Well done.
Let's get out of it right now. Sadly, that's all we're going to have time for. Thank you for being here on this auspicious occasion, which I brought a tie for. You guys inspired?
The last ever time you'll host. It's a great occasion.
You can pass the time to everyone else.
You paid for that.
Well, let's just say a big thanks to my colleagues.
Why didn't you buy a jacket in your size?
For taking me so much into your hearts. Thanks, guys. See you again. Bye.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
On Mark Dolan Tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate, and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me from 9 p.m. to midnight every Friday, Saturday,